welcome to another week of RotoWire TV. I'm Jeff Erickson here with Chris Liss and Michael Gottlieb. We're going to be talking a lot of fantasy football today. 2 weeks of the preseason games are in the books, absent one game, and a lot to talk about here. So, Chris, the thing that moved the needle for us over the weekend was Arian Foster. Still experiencing back pain, still not practicing. You were already pessimistic about him going into the draft season, having him lower than most people. Probably, I think 6 or 7 is your initial ranking. How do you feel about him now?
I haven't changed him that much. I think I made him 8th or something like that. And there's a good chance that he's going to get over this ailment and be ready for week 1 still. But, we talked about this. He had 405 carries last year when you include the playoffs. And playoff games count. Just because they don't count on his regular season stats, they didn't help you in your fantasy league, doesn't mean he didn't get tackled every time that he had those carries in the playoffs. So 405 carries, 4.1 yards per carry, which was a huge drop-off from his prior 2 seasons. Plus his receptions dropped off, and his yards per catch went through the floor as well. So he just wasn't really getting as much per touch as he used to. Now, some of that might have been the offensive line, but I think some of that is that maybe he's just taking a little bit of a beating over the last couple of years. And so I didn't love him heading into this year. I thought there was a good chance of a breakdown. He's already had a calf injury. Now he's got this back thing. Even if he gets back from this back thing, what's next? So, yeah, I'm still going to take him late first, but I don't have him at the very top of my list.
Right, and for us, it's where is the line? Where do you draw that line? We had Tom Kastenik on our radio show this morning, and he was saying that we kept on pushing him, trying to pin him down to a spot, and he was trying to dodge it, kind of like Ron Chandler trying to dodge a Mike Trout draft position in March. But we eventually settled on 13, I think, with him. Now I think that's probably more likely at the outer edge of where people are willing to take him, but people are scared right now. And I actually saw one listener post on our Facebook page said that he wouldn't take him until in his top 25. I think that's extreme, but seriously, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes in the stake league auction on Wednesday. He might go for a good $5, $10 less than the top running backs.
Someone will bid him up.
How high? Like same amount? Not same. He won't go the same price as Peterson. How about him versus Doug Martin? I bet you Martin. Martin had the concussion thing on Friday. It wasn't a concussion.
He'll be within $5 of Doug Martin. Here's the difference. Okay. In a draft, if all the Foster apologists draft in the top 3 or 4 or 5, then they may not even they may be thinking between Foster or Martin, Foster or Charles, and barely go Charles, and then everybody else who doesn't like him could end up pushing him back to 13. But in an auction, everybody's got a crack. So if there's even 1 or 2, it's going to go for almost full price.
Yeah, I agree. Let's bring in a third guy in our broadcast, Michael Gottlieb. Michael's going to be our moderator, if you will. He'll be throwing a lot of topics our way. He's also going to be the guy that sees your questions if you post in the live forum. So fire away with questions. We'll be happy to take them. But first, Michael, let's get your opinion on Arian Foster. What are your thoughts on where he should go? Where are you willing to take him?
So Arian Foster now is the line where I draw in the sand. That's where I start to think about Calvin Johnson in the first round. So everyone has their line as far as where you stop taking running backs, and he's now at that line. That's my tough decision now. Do I go with Arian Foster? Do I go with Calvin Johnson? Basically, do you go with the upside with Arian Foster because he can be a very valuable top 2, top 3 running back, and you can get him later in the first round now, or do you play it safe with Calvin Johnson? Get the big yardage, hopefully the big touchdowns this year. I don't think he's going to score single-digit touchdowns this year. So either you play it safe with Calvin Johnson or you go with Arian Foster. I'm actually more inclined to play it safe in the first round and go with Calvin Johnson if it's later in the first round, and then just take my chances with whoever comes back around in the second round.
All right, fair enough. That was the big needle mover. There was a couple other injuries over the weekend we can talk about over time, but you had a bunch of topics we wanted to bat around here today, so let's go ahead and get started with that, and we'll get going and start taking questions.
So the most common question that I've fielded during the week, because people love quarterbacks, they're the chicks dig the long ball of football, they're the ones who throw the ball long. So QB drafting strategies in general, 10 teams versus 12 teams versus 14 teams or bigger. And then the caveat, discussing between each league, 4-point passing touchdowns versus 6-point passing touchdowns. I know I've heard Chris say in the past that the guys like Cam Newton are gold when there's only 4 points per passing touchdown because of the rushing touchdowns, and just the difference between all those different league variants and how you draft the quarterbacks concordingly.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think that, well, if you're saying I said it, obviously I agree with it. But basically, when there's 6 points per passing touchdown, there's no particular advantage to scoring one on the ground or through the air. So Cam Newton typically, let's say he gets 20 touchdown passes this year and 8 rushing touchdowns. Well, those 8 rushing touchdowns in a 4-point per passing touchdown league are worth 12. So now he's got 32, right? 32 is a really good total for total touchdowns. Versus a guy, like Matt Ryan, who doesn't really run in the ball, so he's just going to get passing touchdowns. You'll see that Cam Newton has more total touchdown scoring than Matt Ryan. But if you change them to 6-point touchdowns, now Cam Newton's got 20 passing, 8 rushing. He's just got 28. And Matt Ryan may have 30. And so then Matt Ryan may outscore Newton in terms of just their touchdown scoring. So you can see how it transfers some value back toward the passing-only quarterbacks from the rushing quarterbacks when you boost the passing touchdowns from 4 to 6. And that's just one thing. You asked about a couple other things, the depth of the league. I think there's 12 really good quarterbacks that you'd be happy to start. Eli Manning makes 13. Michael Vick is sort of the wild card. 14 maybe if he stays healthy for 10 or 12 games, mix and match the rest. So quarterback's very deep. So in a 10-team league, I could see drafting Rodgers or Breeze in early 3, late 2 because they kind of stand out. But then after that, there's just no point. Maybe Newton in late 3, but there's no point after that. You may as well just wait on QBs because you're always going to get someone good even in the 9th or 10th round. In a 12-team league, suddenly those Andrew Luck, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan types kind of matter in the 6th or 7th round because you don't want to get stuck with that one. But again, you can wait till 6, 7, 8. And then in a 14-team league, it gets a little more scarce. But even so, I know even in a 14-team league, I wouldn't be drafting a quarterback. The top guys in late 2nd, early 3rd at the earliest, depending on how your league values quarterbacks. And I would wait, even till 7 or 8, maybe 6. If you're out of running backs and receivers that you really love, maybe that's time to jump in on Andrew Luck in round 6 or Kaepernick in round 6.
It's funny that I did the NFC last week on Wednesday, and I took Cam Newton at 5-1. And I'm getting this Joe Bluth feeling that I've made a huge mistake because it's a 6-point passing touchdown league. It's ironic, but when you make it a 6-point passing touchdown league, it actually encourages you to wait on quarterbacks even more. At least that's the way it's played out in the leagues where I've played in that format. I don't know if that's the intent. I don't know if that's the way it was supposed to be or if it's just an unintended consequence. But I feel like I almost reached at 5.1, not knowing that I wasn't going to get anybody else until 6-12. I just didn't think I'd get the Andrew of the world coming back to me. And in the interim, between my Newton pick and my next pair of picks, the only 2 quarterbacks who went were Brady and Ryan.
Yeah, I would just say, though, that 5-1, Newton almost cannot be mistaken as well. He's given what he's going to do. And I know that the 6-point touchdown league does devalue him slightly, but it's not that much. He's still going to get the rushing yards, which are still worth double. Is it a point every 25 or a point every 10? Or a point every 20 for passing yards in that league.
25.
So they're worth more than double the rushing yards. So if Newton gets 700 yards rushing, that's worth 2.5 times 700. So it's worth 1,750 yards passing. So
Right.
if he just gets 3,500 yards passing, and he may get 4,000, he averaged 8 yards per attempt last year, but just give him 3,500 and 7 yards rushing, he's already over 5,000 total yards. Okay?
Right.
He's going to get more yardage points than Breeze. All right? So I really can't see that being a reach. Second, I think there's another variable that we're not talking about here, and it's how your league drafts quarterbacks. And in 2 leagues that we were in last week, first the Yahoo Friends and Family League, the first quarterback taken was Rodgers in the middle of the 4th. So, of course, that's a great time to take a quarterback. And, of course, me getting whoever I got, Matt Ryan, in round 7, is not the great value that it would have been if Rodgers went in round 2, right?
Right.
It's only a 3-round difference. In other leagues, like in the Stopa Law Firm League, I crunch the numbers for what these, based on their earnings, based on the baseline of who's available on the waiver wire, the difference between replacement and each different player, and how much those guys' stats translate into dollars through a formula that I made. And the quarterbacks were uniformly going for $5 to $10 to even $15 below what they're actually projected to earn. And the running backs were going $10 higher than what they're projected to earn, many of them. And so I think that people, just the market for the league, made you have to kind of reach on running backs if you cared at all. You can't get 7 quarterbacks. We can only start 2 in that league, right? So
right.
At some point you got to let these bargains go because you need running backs. You need to start them. So the market is a tricky thing. On one hand, everyone's overpaying and wasting their money, But you can't just like ignore that and not have running back. So that's the other variables. What is the market for these different positions in your league? Even if the market's wrong, you still have to pay some attention to it.
Yeah, and I made one other mistake in the Stopa Law Firm League. We did this auction together. For me, I set the draft tool to have one quarterback as a flex and one as a starting quarterback. The market, though, was treating it as a two-quarterback league. So uniformly, I was underpriced on the quarterbacks. In fact, when you say that you ran the numbers that they were going for $5 to $10 less than they should have, it was the exact opposite for me. They were going $5 to $10 more than they should have. And meanwhile, tight ends were like bargain bin guys. And the running backs were about value. Wide receivers are actually super cheap. I think wide receivers were cheap regardless. But it's funny how setting a few parameters one way or another will really affect the outcome of your draft.
Well, I did it really rigorously and scientifically. Like I didn't say whether it was a 2 or 1 quarterback league. What I did was I picked a baseline for quarterbacks, the guys I thought would be available, like Geno Smith and Blaine Gabbert. Those were the baseline because that's who's on the waiver wire right now, right? I mean, no one else is Christian Ponder is owned, okay? So if you didn't get any quarterbacks, who would you be freely available? These borderline guys who are barely starting, right? So that was the baseline. Whether you want to say 2 quarterbacks or 1 in the flex, all that stuff is just a concept. The reality is, what's the baseline, right? And if the baseline is, Mark Sanchez or whatever, or Geno Smith, then you know how to price quarterbacks accordingly. Same thing with running backs. Who's the baseline? Who's the guy that, if you look at the waiver wire, this is the top guy on the waiver wire. That's where your baseline should be, and that should inform your values.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point because I think a lot of value systems base it off the number of starters, not over who's owned. And I think that's a sea change difference. When replacement value is the top reserve on someone's team versus the top guy on the waiver wire, I mean, that's a huge, massive difference in value.
Yeah, last I checked, you can't pick up players on other people's benches. You have to go to the waiver wire, so your baseline has to be what's available. That's what a guy's worth.
So just to sum it up in a sentence, what are you trying to do going into a draft? If you think everyone's going to go at market value, when are you trying to target quarterbacks in a 10, a 12, and a 14-team league with 4 or 6 points touchdowns for passing touchdowns?
If I think everyone is going at true market value, and then what I think is going to happen is I'm probably going to get Andrew Luck or Kaepernick or someone like that in round 6 or 7 in a 1 QB league. If it's a 14-team league, I'll be more, obviously the rounds get a little deeper. I may go 6, for one of those guys. I will usually in a 14-team format, and it happened to me in the Yahoo League, I got Matt Ryan. Around 6 or 7, you get to a point in your draft where that quarterback run of the sort of second-tier quarterbacks is coming, and you may be a long time before you pick again, and you don't love any receiver, tight end, or running back there. There's some guys, but there's no one that jumps out, and you take a quarterback. If there is a receiver or running back that jumps out, I might take him and gamble. And if I don't get one of those guys, maybe I get Eli Manning.
For me, I like doing the waiting thing almost always, but the odd thing is I'm finding myself with Cam Newton everywhere. And maybe it's just it's really kind of an off-putting feeling, but typically I'm very comfortable waiting to the 8th or 9th round and getting the 12th quarterback taken, whether it's Eli this year or Roethlisberger in previous years. So it's a weird year because I don't see that one pre-breakout quarterback that's really going to go among the elite this year. I could be wrong about it, but there's no pre-breakout Stafford, pre-breakout Matt Ryan.
We don't know, Jeff.
I don't know, but I don't.
We didn't see it coming. We never saw it coming.
But a lot of people felt Stafford was coming.
No, right? They thought Stafford would be like a top 10. They didn't think he'd have 5,000 yards. Okay, and then
work with me here. But I am saying that's the guy I'm very comfortable taking that I could get like in the 9th or 10th round before his big year. And I don't have that one guy I'm honing in on. That guy might be there. I'm just saying I don't have that guy right now.
Okay, I see. You haven't identified a particular one.
Right.
What I'm saying is, even though people thought Stafford or they thought somebody like Cam Newton, nobody had on their radar when he was a rookie.
No.
And Michael Vick in 2010, nobody had. And then once in a while, someone will have Stafford on their radar for a breakout, or Eli that year. He had 4,900 yards. But, I mean, realistically, nobody sees the big thing coming. I think let's just talk about quarterbacks that could be top 12. That are not in the top 15 right now.
Okay.
Alex Smith, right? I mean, he could do it.
Yep.
He's going to get a lot of attempts, and he's in a system that's very friendly to quarterbacks. Carson Palmer, we talked about that today on the air. Maybe he has some upside. I don't really love Carson Palmer. I'm sure you don't as a Bengals fan, but yeah, but I could see the case for it. I could see the case for Jay Cutler in that system with the weapons that he now has if his offensive line is truly upgraded, and I could see the case, even crazy as it sounds, for like a guy like Matt Flynn, who might just be throwing all day long. But realistically, Cutler, Palmer, and Alex Smith are three easy ones to see break into the top 12.
Sure. And you made another interesting comment when you drafted Alex Smith. I think it was in Friends and Family, or was it when you bought him in Stopa?
Stopa. There's no reason to draft him in Friends and Family.
Right. You're right. That's exactly the point. It's really, you see that guy, and it's really hard to profit off of that. I mean, though I think the exception is if you're the weight on the quarterbacks guy, you take the very last starting quarterback instead of taking Roethlisberger. Say Eli's gone, we'll just work on this concept. You take Smith. He is your starter. I mean, that's really putting yourself out there, but that's about the only way you can profit off of that.
It could happen, okay, because the top 12, let's just go really quickly through this top 12. Rodgers, Breeze, Newton, top 3. Mm-hmm. Peyton is usually 4. And then the next group is like Ryan 5, Luck 6, Brady 7, Kaepernick 8, Wilson 9, Romo 10, Stafford 11, and RG3 12. And they may be in a different order for you, but it doesn't matter. Those are the 12. Right. Then you've got Eli, in my opinion, at 13, okay, who I think is going to bounce back. Mm-hmm. And then at 14, I have Vic, but some people have Roethlisberger or whatever, okay? But if you wait until the 10th round in a 12-team league, those 12 are gone. Somebody takes a backup. Somebody takes Eli as a backup. Somebody maybe takes Vic as a backup, as an upside guy, and Roethlisberger. And then you might just wait till the last pick in your draft and say, I'll take Alex Smith, and not use any resources on QB whatsoever. All my resources are running back, tight end, wide receiver. I think that's viable. I think you could profit off Alex Smith that way, but it's an awfully risky strategy if he doesn't pan out.
Right. And that presupposes that you don't have 8-man benches, 10-man benches like we have in the NFFC. If you do that in the NFFC, everybody's taking a backup, so it's even a little bit different there.
But you could still maybe get Alex Smith super late.
Right. It's just not. Yeah, you have to use a teeny tiny resource there. Right. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. And that's about the only way to profit off of that instinct there. But that's the trap that we had, and that's why the 2 quarterback or quarterback as a flex system is such a superior way to play this game.
So if you're drafting, so another question that's commonly being asked is, if you're drafting one of the later guys in that top 12, top 13. Are you going to double up on quarterback right after? Let's say if there's an RG3 and there's an injury factor, are you going to double up and try and get Dalton right afterwards, or are you going to wait again until Alex Smith?
I'm going to wait till Alex Smith. I don't care. I like Alex Smith better than Dalton. So I know Dalton may be safer because he's been there a couple years, but I'll take Alex Smith. If I got RG3, I could see getting Eli in the next round if he's there, just to have one safe guy, one upside guy, but I don't think you need to in a 12-team league. There's going to be good waiver wire quarterbacks. Brandon Whedon could break out, for all we know. There's just so many guys that that week to week I think you could mix and match.
I don't care if Dalton's still there. I still might take Alex Smith before him just because that's who I like better. I don't care if he's ranked below in almost everywhere because all it takes is one guy to like Alex Smith, and I'm going to be bummed out when someone takes him and he breaks out.
But you're not going to take Alex Smith the round after you take RG3. You would wait 7 rounds because you don't have to, right?
3 rounds. Because all it takes is one guy to want to take his little stupid backup quarterback, and then you're left like, Man, I guess there are other guys. You could take the Dalton or you could take the Palmer or whatever. But
tons of guys.
But if you really like Alex Smith, take him. I mean, who cares? I mean, just take him.
But I mean, presumably there's someone else you like. Presumably.
Well, yeah. Other
there's
positions,
like a Rod Streeter or a Nick Toon or somebody that you're like, I think this guy could break out.
Yeah, let's talk Nick Toon real quick, by the way. I'm annoyed at that one because all the talk about this now is that Kenny Stills is going to be the guy ahead of Toon, and I just think Toon's a better player, and it looks like that pick of mine in the NFFC might be going to waste a little bit here.
Why? Because you think Stills is going to take his job? I mean, Stills had one good game. Toon has had a strong camp so far. Maybe Stills outplayed him in one game. I think it's still wide open.
Is that just preseason training camp noise?
I mean, did anyone on the Saints coaching staff anoint Stills as the number 3 guy?
I thought I saw something to that effect. Maybe you keep talking. I'll look up the report on it.
I don't remember. There's a lot of stuff on Twitter, and you see one guy has a good game or makes a good play, and you just have guys starting to get excited about it, and it takes on a life of its own as if this is actually something's happened, and nothing's happened.
Yeah, I'm reading the latest update on him. It's like looks to be the favorite over Tune. Okay, I'm fine. I'm back off the ledge now. Thanks.
According to whom, though? Even like who
Right.
said he looks to be?
It might have been our writer for all we know. I mean,
But
it
like,
might have
what
been.
basis is he saying that? I may have to email him and just say, dude, come on,
Yeah.
give me a link.
Yeah.
I hope it's linked. I don't like looks to be. I hate that phrase anyway. He looks to be. He looks like. Looks to be. What does that mean?
Reports are
like a clown. Yeah.
Yeah.
According to sources.
Yeah.
So Jeff, a personal question: do you feel more comfortable heading into a season with DeMarco Murray and Darren McFadden, or with Eli Manning and, let's say, Andy Dalton and Alex Smith?
And that's not really. It's like apples and kumquats, isn't it? I mean, they're not really the same thing there. And I'm not really comfortable with the personal question there. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm okay with the McFadden. In fact, I've redoubled my efforts on McFadden since we last spoke. I have him in FFC, and I bought him in the Stopa auction also. So yeah, I guess I'm kind of all in. I didn't really intend for this season to be all about Run DMC, but it is now. I'm going to be playing a lot of Christmas and Hollis, I hope.
Yeah, or he's gonna get hurt in like week 3, and that's gonna devastate your entire.
And then I'll be instead of Christmas
teams.
and Hollis, I'll be playing Life Sucks. But
yeah,
so it's all right.
It's kind of like when Giancarlo Stanton, who's on every team I have, decided to run super hard to break up a double play on a team that's not going to win, 60 games, and
in April,
tore his hamstring.
So Jeff, is there something that you see in Darren McFadden this year that changes, what the popular opinion is about him, or the fact that there is a popular opinion to let him slide, that you're going to be going in on him a little earlier just because it's opposite? If everyone's going one way, go the other way.
Some of that, and I've had my feel. I think there's a last year's bums feel about it, but I mean, I look at our research, I look at our projections, he's healthy now. I know what he's capable of doing when he's healthy. He's 25 years old. All the I think everything that points to it is right at this time. There's nothing in particular I've seen. I don't like that he's just lost his left tackle. That kind of sucks. But I like what he can do. I like that maybe Matt Flynn doesn't throw as deep as often, so they need to throw more to McFadden. Every league that I've gotten him in, it's a PPR league too, and I like that about him too.
So would you be as high on him in a non-PPR, or you?
No, of course not. I'd take Steven Jackson over him in a non-PPR, but because Steven Jackson's going to get a lot of goal line carries probably. But McFadden still might get the goal line carries. I know he's going to catch a ton of passes, and he could go nuts. And it's not like McFadden doesn't get goal line carries. He's not one of those guys that immediately comes out of the game anytime the team gets in the red zone.
Gotcha. And speaking of running backs, now bringing me to one of my questions that I've wanted to ask for a while is what your feelings are on rookie running backs specifically. We could even start with Jeff with the Bengals and Gio Bernard. A lot of people have questions because of Trent Richardson last year, how he was, a pretty decent performer. Is there someone this year that you see at the running back position as a rookie ready to break out, or is it something that you're going to maybe wait a year and see how they do this year and wait till year 2?
I'll take them. In fact, I took 2 in NFC. I took Le'Veon Bell and I took Monte Ball. I love Giovanni Bernard, but I don't own him anywhere yet. There's still chances to get him, though. But I like that they ran him between the tackles in the second week of the preseason there. Again, law firm was sitting out the game, so they need to have somebody run it. But the fact that they wanted to kind of try this out and see what he could do, I thought that was a positive sign. Yeah. The whole James Brooks comparison still rings out. I still like it. It's the popular way to compare him, though. So, I don't want to overplay that too much. Maybe it's like sometimes I think when you're a fan of a team, you almost try to tap down your own expectations a little bit there to make sure you're not becoming a homer. I don't know what there is about that. What do you think, Chris?
About rookie backs, I don't have any problem drafting rookie backs. I kind of feel like, we looked at a study by Jonathan Bales that said that rookie backs average the most yards per carry that they'll ever average in their careers. So it's basically the only reason that they don't peak as rookies every year is because they don't get the opportunities as often as more established backs. But in terms of their efficiency and effectiveness when they're in there, being a rookie is not something that hampers you. It's not like baseball where you need 5 years of experience before you peak. These guys peak right away. So I've got no problem with rookie running backs. You just got to find guys who can hold up under the pounding, and also who are going to get an opportunity to play. And there's a bunch. Bernard will get some chances. Eddie Lacy Le'Veon Bell, and maybe Monte Ball. And so those are the guys that you're looking at that could get an extended opportunity. I have no problem with it. And the whole notion that, like, okay, well, I'm not sure about this guy because he has no track record, so I'm going to wait until he does something and then deal with him next year. Well, I mean, it's risk and reward go together, and cost. It's like, well, yeah, you can wait till next year after he has a solid year of being good, and then next year you'll have to take him in the first round, right?
Yeah.
This year you'll get him in the fourth or fifth maybe. So, that's the deal. I mean, you're going to take more risk, but you're also going to get more of a profit if he does pan out.
And so you guys, as long as they're at it's really more about market price and the fact that they are rookies. You don't slide them down or up based on the fact that they're rookies. It's just whatever the opportunity is what they're worth.
Yeah, pretty much.
The only problem with being a rookie is that they have to prove they can pass protect. They have to prove they can hold on. There's certain things they have to prove, and because coaches, being how they are, need to see all that. Sometimes the rookie gets sort of the short shrift in terms of playing time. But assuming the rookie has a good path to playing time, I do not discount him at all for being a rookie.
Yeah, they have younger legs. Running back's a young man's position. I mean, like Chris said, I mean, you have the David Wilson fumble example. You have the pass block example with him too. But then you also have the fact that you got all these 30-year-olds that show a lot of tread on the tires and drop off the face of the earth, such like this. So, I mean, it's 6 one half dozen of another.
Gotcha. For any position, is there any rookie that you would drop down because they're a rookie? Let's say if it's a wide receiver, tight end. Is there any position that you are afraid of rookies, or is it just if they have the talent, you get them out there and you start them?
Historically, tight end is the worst. Rookie tight ends almost never do anything. Receivers don't usually do much. I think some of that is because they don't get opportunities, and so I'd like to see a study done where take every rookie receiver that got X amount of targets. I'm sure he does just as well as any other receiver. It's just more to learn, running routes, being on the same page as your quarterback, knowing the offense, knowing how to break off routes, knowing how to read defenses and kind of get in the right spot in the zone. I think those things are harder coming into the league than it is to just be a running back and find the open, follow your blockers or find a hole. So I think receivers are a little bit harder. Tight ends are the worst. And running backs are the best. And quarterbacks obviously struggled a lot, years ago, but now quarterbacks, as we saw last year, are making a much smoother transition.
Gotcha. So for wide receivers now, a comparison was made on Facebook earlier in the week. Are they like the starting pitchers of football, or are they some people that you tend to wait on, but some people say you have to have an ace or you have to have one of the top X guys? Are they really like starting pitchers in baseball?
You're asking me? I don't see the analogy. I think it's a poor analogy. I would say quarterbacks, if you're going to say, or anything like starting pitchers, I would say.
Love him. He doesn't mince words, folks.
No, I mean, I just think quarterback. I mean, they're both throwers, pitchers and quarterbacks, and I also, when they go south, like Phillip Rivers, they don't always come back. Maybe we'll see if Rivers comes back. It's hard.
Maybe.
And so and it's all timing and setting the timing. There's all this whole. I think the most similarity you can have is quarterbacks, and you can wait on quarterbacks, you can wait on pitchers. The best analogies, I think, are goal line running backs and closers. It's just about the job. It's not about how good you are, and if you're better, it helps you keep the job, but you just want the guy who's got that job. And tight ends and catchers. It's a position that's great if you have a great one because you're getting production where other people aren't, but they always get hurt, and they never get the full amount of targets or at-bats. So tight end and catcher, goal line backs and closers. I don't know about wide receivers and pitchers.
Yeah, and it's nice to put things in a box and have a cross-sport analogy, but you could just say they're like point guards. I don't know, or just like shot blockers in roto basketball. I mean, no, it's just they are what they are. Why not? Why don't stretch to make the analogy?
Gotcha. They're like goalies in hockey.
Yeah. And you start two of them, or two, or sometimes three. But
they're like midfielders in soccer.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Sorry, I'm getting all sidetracked with soccer now because I'm totally in on that. But for wide receivers, though, are there top tier guys that you feel like you must have? Like must have one of the top 5 wide receivers, one of the top 7 wide receivers, or is it just I'll wait and I'll just get the middle of the pack guys and let other people spend the premium dollars on the top guys?
It's always don't be dogmatic except for being dogmatic about being dogmatic. But I don't have to have top 5 this or one of the top 6 running backs. I mean, it depends on what the draft gets me, where I'm going, or if I'm in an auction and how the bidding's going. Chris and I were talking about that, earlier about the Stoke Law Firm auction that we did last week, and the top running backs all went for full price, whether it was vastly overpriced, as Chris said, or right at the value that I was using in our draft tool. Either way, I just okay, there's not value here, so I'm going to wait on those second, third tier guys and get a roster full of them there. And so I'm not going to have a $1 or $2 guy in my starting lineup. I'm going to have solid guys across the board. My whole plan was to go balance in this auction, and I think it worked out okay. But so that's one way to address it. Now, in another league where there's fewer teams or fewer starting spots, I might feel differently. I might feel like I want to go start some scrubs a little bit more. So it really all depends on the parameters that you're operating.
What was the question again?
Is there a tier of wide receivers that you feel like you have to have? You have to have one of or two of.
Yeah, I don't know what Jeff was talking about. He was going on about something else, totally not related to the question.
It was tangentially related.
I literally forgot the question because I was listening to your answer. It was very interesting, but it was about something totally different. Always about you and your Stoke Law Firm team. So, in my view, the top 6 receivers this year are truly like a tier of top 6 that we've never had before, or maybe rarely had before. Maybe when it was Moss, Owens, Harrison in their prime, and maybe Torrey Holt, there was a really strong top 4. And I'm not sure that everybody was healthy and overlapped at the same time. But these top 6, when you look at Calvin Johnson, Des Bryant, A.J. Green, Demaryius Thomas, Julio Jones, and Brandon Marshall, they're big. They're fast enough. Most of them are very fast. Brandon Marshall is just kind of average speed, but he's fast enough given his size. These are target monsters. They dominate the targets. They get goal line looks. They get downfield looks. They make big plays. They've all been reasonably durable, and they score touchdowns. I mean, it is, if you're at the end of the first round, early second, these are guys that you love to get. They are difference makers. They are head and shoulders above a lot of the other guys who have, different issues. Even from Andre Johnson, who doesn't catch touchdowns very often, and he's injury prone, to Larry Fitzgerald, who's a little bit slow, and he's in a transitional team, and who knows how the offense is going to be, to Roddy White, who's really doesn't have that much deep speed anymore and got a lot of targets to share with other players. So, those top 6, I think, are really valuable this year. I don't think you have to have them. I agree with Jeff that don't be dogmatic, except about being not dogmatic. I think, you don't have to have them, but yeah, it's nice to get one. Especially the ideal is if you're drafting like 7th and you get like C.J. Spiller, Trent Richardson, or whoever, Ray Rice, and on the way back there's still one of those 6 receivers there. That's a great thing to get in the second round.
Right. And I will say this though, right now there's the top 6, but it's backward looking by its very nature. When we can try to predict the future, we try to pay for their future. And we look at the physical tools, like you mentioned, their size. But I guarantee you, there's going to be, at the end of the year, when we have our top 5 or top 6, there's going to be 2 or 3 outliers there, maybe by injury, maybe by some other guy exploding. And that's just the way it works sometimes. But these are the 6 most likely to do that. So it's by its very nature, it's backward looking.
Well, yeah, it's forward looking. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is these are the guys that I see having all the ingredients of a great receiver, and that's why I like Doug Martin at running back. He has all the ingredients you want. Mm-hmm. He's young, he's fast, he catches passes, he's on the field all 3 downs, he gets all the goal line carries. He's never really been hurt in the NFL, at least in the NFL. He's they're not worried about his blocking. There's nothing that they're going to take him off the field for. He does everything. Okay, he's got all the ingredients. And the same thing, these receivers have everything. They're fast enough. Some of them are very fast, but at least everyone's over the minimum threshold. They're not possession receivers. They're all deep threats. They all get red zone looks. They all dominate targets, although Julio Jones and Demaryius Thomas share targets, but they'll still get 130, 140 in pass-heavy teams. So you're talking about guys who have everything going for them. And when you get outside that first tier, yes, somebody with less going for them is going to beat out one of those guys. Would I bet that those, the exacta or whatever it is in the horse race, or whatever, just that those 6 will finish in some order in the top 6? No way. There's going to probably be 2 or 3 of them are going to, not be that good for injuries or something else. But in terms of having all the ingredients, I don't think there's ever been 6 guys that have everything at the top of the board.
Yeah. What's really funny is about those top 6 receivers, not one of them is on one of the top 3 fantasy receivers. If we're assuming that Cam Newton is the number 3, top 3 fantasy quarterback, it's not tied to one of the top 3 fantasy quarterbacks. No Packers, no Saints, no Panthers in that list of wide receivers. It's one of the case where these receivers make themselves, not the other way around.
No Patriots, no Colts. No, yeah. Let's look at all the top guys. It's because
Thomas is the only one with Peyton Manning is the only one I can think of that's tied to.
And Matt Ryan and Julio Jones.
Julio Jones, yeah.
But the thing about that is that these, and Stafford to an extent, but he totally makes. Stafford would be like such an average scrub if it weren't for Calvin Johnson.
Right.
But it's I think part of that is because the greatest quarterbacks throw to the guy who's open, and these elite receivers, and what makes them so elite is they don't have to be, there could be someone next to them and they're still open because they're so big and so agile. So that you could throw the ball to these guys even if they're not open. And, it's easy for a mediocre quarterback to just keep throwing it the guy's way and let the guy make a play. Whereas great quarterbacks, they can go through 4 progressions and get the ball to whoever's open or single covered.
And then when you have a great receiver paired with a great quarterback, you have Tom Brady to Randy Moss.
You get 50 and 23. 50 touchdowns for Brady, 23 for Moss.
Well, yeah, but the thing about that situation was that he was also, levels above the next best receiver. When we're talking about Peyton Manning, Demaryius Thomas, I mean, they still have Wes Welker and Eric Decker there. I mean, do you feel like the addition of Wes Welker detracts from Demaryius Thomas a little bit, or no?
Well, guess who was playing with Moss that year?
Yeah, well,
Wes Welker. He got 112 catches.
But they were all 5 yards. I mean,
that's his job. That's his MO. 5, that's 9 yard. Yeah.
How has that changed in his career? I mean, it's not like all of a sudden he's a deep guy.
Well, he's been getting deeper. He's been getting deeper passes the past couple of years in New England. That's maybe out of necessity because they had no one stretching the field.
And he, one year, he had that 99-yard catch. It was like a short catch, and I'm sure that's added like 2 yards for his yards per catch.
Exactly.
A 99-yard catch is a big outlier, but no, I mean, I'm not saying, things. Welker doesn't have a lot of long speed. He's very quick in small spaces, and he's not big, so he's not the guy you can just kind of chuck it up downfield and let Brandon Marshall go get it. He's gonna work the intermediate and short areas of the field, and Decker, Decker led the NFL in red zone targets last year, 25, and he caught 12 TDs. So Decker is the problem for Thomas having the monster year, not Welker. And I think Welker, if anything, cuts into the tight end usage and cuts into Decker's usage a little bit in the middle of the field.
Yeah, well, Welker had 10. Well, within the 10-yard line even, he had 10 targets and he had 5 touchdowns and 7 receptions, but 5 touchdowns. He gets targeted. I mean, he got targeted by New England in the red, at least within the 10. I mean, I think Peyton Manning is going to throw to whoever's open. You're right, but that could be one of 3 very good receivers this year.
Well, Welker got these little short. He was a rare small receiver that got a few extra touchdowns. Though he still didn't have. He had 7 touchdowns last year, 8, not very many. But he got his touchdowns because he get these little short, little comeback. He does comeback routes and then just kind of dart into the end zone, because he's small and just kind of find a hole. But there's no way he's catching fades or catching balls over anybody. So most red zone use is, when we talk about red zone use, that's in the end zone, not short of the end zone. It's fades and in the back corner. And Welker is not going to catch the ball in the end zone. He'll get the ball in the red zone. And so I guess if he can dart in, he can get a couple. But I'd be surprised if he catches more than 6, 7 touchdowns this year.
Jeff, how many touchdowns do you think Wes Welker gets?
What Chris said. I mean, I don't really diverge there. I mean, it's really not. He's never been a big touchdown guy. So 5, 6, whatever, maybe 7.
He's not going to have like a Brandon Stokely or Austin Collie when he is the one guy going in the middle that Peyton Manning just relies on. He's going to be open right in front of him. He's going to just pick him out.
I think we're kind of going on the deceptive speed train here. I don't know, but
Austin Collie, Brandon Stokely, Jordy Nelson-esque a little bit, Danny Amendola maybe.
Yeah. Well, just guys who can go, get open in the middle, but
guys who need to wear more suntan lotion than most NFL players.
I did a terrestrial radio hit yesterday, and I kind of said deceptive speed. I was like, oh wait, they don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Oops, got to know my audience.
Yeah.
So this transitions nicely into my kind of like a football sabermetric stat here, where especially within the 10-yard line or red zone targets, but I'm actually going to go more specifically within the 10, receptions when the team is within 10 yards of the end zone. So the guy who got the most targets, who do you think got the most targets of anyone inside the 10?
I'm going to say AJ Green.
He's very close. He's second.
Yeah, Chris wrote the receiver, so
I know. I should
operating at a disadvantage.
I should know this.
Well, it's not the true red zone. It's within the goal. It's in.
No, but that's even more important because everything inside the 10, except if it's to Wes Welker, is Wes Welker literally would get the ball. New England had the ball at the 9, and Wes Welker would catch it at the 4. Okay, but everything besides that is that's inside the 10 is in the end zone.
Yeah.
Where it's going to count. Was it Welker that got 14? Who was it?
was Eric Decker, wasn't it?
No, neither.
Decker had the most inside the 20.
Yes, inside the 20 he did, but not inside the 10.
All right.
Inside the 10, it goes to Mike Williams of Tampa Bay. He had 17.
Yeah, good
He had 17. I'm so happy that Chris didn't know this.
Yeah.
But no,
Major day, huh? That's
exactly.
Good.
I found something Chris didn't know. But no, Mike Williams had 17.
And it's in my Mike Williams write-up, I'm pretty sure, but I don't remember.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, Mike Williams had 17, but the thing is, he only caught 6. But all of them were touchdowns, but he only caught 6 of them. So, do you look at those kind of stats and say, hey, can he really be 35% efficiency inside the 10-yard line again this year? Because I don't think he's going to get significantly fewer targets this year in the red zone. I think he may even get more, but it's a matter of.
I think it's a good stat. Look, it means they use him down there, and part of the reason they probably use him is Vincent Jackson gets most of the attention. They don't have a legitimate pass-catching tight end there, and so who's going to get the ball when they're throwing it? It's going to be either Jackson or Williams, and Williams may get less coverage because he's not as Vincent Jackson's 6'4", 6'5", 240. So they're going to make sure that he's not that he needs extra attention. And Williams, who's like 6'1", 6'2", 215, and a good athlete, that's good enough to beat the single coverage if he gets single coverage there. So. Yeah, if he gets 17 more looks inside the 10, his over-under is probably 8 touchdowns there, and he's going to get a few outside the 10. So he's going to get, maybe he gets 10, 11 touchdowns. He got how many touchdowns did he have last year? Like 9 or 10, right?
So, I think he had 9 last year. I can look it up though.
Yeah.
But and then conversely on the other side, there's a guy who caught 9 out of 10, and 8 of them were touchdowns inside the 10-yard line. He's a tight end. I'm pretty sure Chris will get this one. What do you think that one is?
Gronkowski?
No.
What he caught? Oh, Kyle Rudolph.
He caught yes, Kyle Rudolph.
Okay.
He caught 9 out of 10 inside the 10, but 8 of them were touchdowns. I mean, do you see that kind of efficiency on the other side, on the flip side? So he had 80% of his targets were converted into touchdowns inside the 10.
Is that kind of a garbage stat? I mean, isn't that a little bit of happenstance that he happened to have a quarterback that delivered it on target every time? And, it seems to me like, we're ascribing like that as a skill when it's a lot of it. There's a huge element that's out of his control.
Well, it's not skill. It's usage plus skill. It's like being able to run the route and get open, and the quarterback delivering, and the coach calling the play or looking for, and the quarterback looking for.
Yeah, the number of targets. Yes, I'm talking about efficiency in and of itself.
Oh, yeah. I mean. It is and it isn't, I think. I mean, yeah, you're right. The efficiency, like, why would Kyle Rudolph be more efficient at catching 10-yard passes in the red zone than Owen Daniels or whoever else, I think the usage number is the most important. The conversion number, though, might be a little important because it was successful, and maybe the team will call more of those plays.
Sure.
I mean, they may think, okay. But then again, if in week 2 they throw to him 3 times and 1 gets picked and 2 get dropped, maybe that's the end of that. So,
yeah, but it happened to be against the one team that had a monster coverage linebacker that was playing or shifted to safety on him and was able to do that there. And they ascribed that as that small sample size as okay, we can't do that the same. Maybe it's just we can't do it against this team.
Right, and Rudolph. The thing you like about Rudolph is he's very big, and Christian Ponder is going to look for him down there, and that's. I gave him like 8 touchdowns or something in the projections. I gave him a lot of touchdowns.
Gotcha. So speaking of now with tight ends, would you be happy if you started week 1 with Cameron Jordan on your team?
Sure. I mean, I'm not. Look, if it's late round 2, and I feel like I can get the players that a running back that I like, a receiver that I like in round 3, I may take Jimmy Graham. If not, though, if he's gone in early round 2. Then I'm not really. I'll take whoever. I'll wait till round 10 to get a tight end. If it's Fleener or Jordan Cameron or Antonio Gates or whoever, I'm not. I'm not that particular. Jared Cook, whoever. And could Cameron be good? Sure, he looks good in the preseason. He's gonna probably get some looks, but I'm not particularly targeting him. But I'd be fine if I got stuck with him. I actually did get stuck with him in the 16-team Vegas league. It was my last pick. I got stuck with him.
Brilliant. Now, the thing is, you didn't spend a 7th-round pick on the guy. What I'm finding is that I'm not ending up with Vernon Davis or Jason Witten or Tony Gonzalez. I'm not, or Grant for that matter. Just because I just don't feel like in that 4th, 5th round am I willing to pay that price. Right. So, I'll take whatever. I'm ending up with Owen Daniels a lot because he's safe. He's gonna get you. He's cheap. He's always like the 12th tight end taken. But he's going to get usage. The Texans are going to throw in the red zone. to him because they don't throw to Andre Johnson as much.
But they don't throw to anybody.
Yeah,
But they throw to their tight ends. I mean, it's just the only problem is with Olin Daniels. The only problem is they always find a second tight end.
Right, and he's always hurt. The fact that he's hurt also.
Yeah, that too. But point being is, I'm not paying anything for a tight end. I'll take him or someone like him. I'll take Kyle Rudolph. Whatever it's going to give, whatever the system is going to give me at that point in time. Right. I'm not willing to reach to take Vernon Davis. You talk to Kevin Payne, and he elevates Davis to like the number 2 tight end overall, and thinks he's going to be pretty close to Jimmy Graham. And if that's the case, then for him, a 3rd-round pick on Vernon Davis is justified. For me, I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Just because Vernon Davis lines up as a wide receiver doesn't mean he'll perform as a wide receiver.
He's also not even lining up as a wide receiver in camp. There was talk about that, and they actually didn't do it. He could be really good. They just traded for Jonathan Baldwin. I just don't think and he's a really good blocker. That's probably the worst part of it. If Tony Gonzalez was as good a blocker as Vernon Davis, he might not have all the records.
Yeah.
Right. I saw just an article in the Cincinnati Enquirer touting Jermaine Gresham's blocking skills. I'm like, okay, move him down 2 more slots right there. Tyler Eifert, you go up 2.
Yeah.
Although then you got a rookie tight end. Okay, step back down. But, it really does hurt these guys. Jason Witten forever was hurt by this. And there's a lot of tight ends that get screwed by that.
And this may be a sleeper that I'm going to give you, but it's in reverse. But I am under no circumstances going to have Brandon Pettigrew as my tight end. That guy is just so bad, and he just cannot catch the ball. And the only reason I care, and I hate the Lions, I hate Stafford, is that I probably had them against the spread a couple times. And I think I remember Pettigrew just me being like, what? I mean, how can you, he and Jermichael Finley are the 2 worst. I have the 2 worst hands at the position.
Well, are you giving up on Jermichael Finley?
I mean, look, both Pettigrew and Finley could be good. But I can't in good conscience take them. I'll take a Kobe Fleener. I'll take an Antonio Gates, either the really old guy or the really young guy. I'm not going with these, sort of middle of their career guys who just cannot catch.
So you're not believing the good hype on Jermichael Finley in camp this year?
There's always good hype on that guy. First of all, he's injury prone also.
Yeah.
He just seems like he just never had a career. There's that one second half of 1 year that he was really good, and he was a top 3 tight end heading into the next season fantasy-wise. Got hurt again, busted, then started dropping passes. He's never had a good year, really. And, at least Gates used to have a good year. Maybe he'll have one last one. At least Fleener could have a good year in the future, or Jordan Cameron, or whoever. But Finley's never had a good year. I mean, at some point it's like, I'd rather bet on somebody repeating something or, growing into something than somebody who's just never done it.
A year too early versus a year too late, right?
Yeah, well, where you have to take Gates. Normally I like to get out a year too early. Like I don't want to, spend like Gonzalez. I don't have any interest in him whatsoever. But Gates, first of all, he's 4 years younger. His body's probably 8 years older, but he's 4 years younger chronologically. And where you have to take him in the 10th round or whatever. So what if he busts? I'll just drop him, pick up someone else. There's no problem. Having him be a bust.
Then Jeff.
Repeat the question. Sorry, Chris.
Stop emailing people. Stop, IMing with people. Jeez.
So
Chris is talking about himself again. So.
It's even worse than on the radio when you're like totally spaced in another solar system.
No, am I going to take Tony Gonzalez? I do like. Yeah. I do like that he eats well. He's not going to pull Marvin Harrison and eat fast food and start shooting people and retire early. So there is that.
Yes.
But
good point.
He's going to make hair commercials instead. But I looked at him. He's actually the one guy in that second tier, and I can include him in that same tier with Vernon Davis and Jason Witten. He seems to have slipped a little bit like around after that. I seriously considered him at the NFFC. I think I was 2 picks away from getting him perhaps in one league. But, again, I just find myself going with the cheap guys usually.
Yeah, so back to you're totally fine. Jordan Cameron, Zach Sudfield, especially if you have Gronk, I think you absolutely have to draft Sudfield. But
no, why do you? Why do you have to?
Well, because let's say Gronk misses time, that means you have a guy who's going to be the first tight end in a very tight end friendly offensive system, and then you get Gronk for let's say 12 games, 14 games. So you're going to get the number 2 performing tight end. And he's going to be a part of that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if you get Gronk, why can't you pair him with Zach Rudolph instead? What's the difference?
Well, Zach Rudolph's going to cost more.
If Sudfeld, okay, you're presupposing that, and that's not necessarily true. Sudfeld keeps on going higher and higher.
Yeah, I I don't know. Dorian's been nagging me. Oh, you got to raise Sudfeld, and I raised him for like the 24th tight end already. I'm like, I mean, we're talking about a guy who may be relevant for 4 games, and who knows if he's any good. I mean, I don't know that he's going to be like, I think about New England, and people have to understand is just because a guy looks like he's the favorite for a job, he doesn't have the job the way, say, Roddy White has a job or, Tony Gonzalez has a job. We know they have a job. And 2, we don't know that they're going to keep the job. And 3, we don't know that they're good enough to say, the idea that New England is a 2 tight end offense. Well, they have been ever since Hernandez and Gronk were drafted. But, if they didn't have good players at that position, maybe they throw to the receivers, maybe they run it more, maybe they throw to the backs more. So I'm not going to presume that they're going to just use Sudfeld as the sort of, Gronk Jr., while he's out. They may just, use him every now and then.
So I'm too much on the hype train for Sudfeld?
I mean, maybe I'm right. I haven't watched the New England games in the preseason, so maybe I'm missing something. But I think everybody is. I think everybody. Kimbrel Tompkins, the guy is slow. The idea that like, oh well, he's going to be the guy. I don't know. Maybe he'll be for a week or 2. I'm just not. I just don't really. I'll never elevate those guys above like the Jordan Camerons, who are like slated to start for sure for the season if barring injury. I won't elevate a Sudfeld. Up past, 20, I have 24. I want to elevate him above Martellus Bennett, for example, who's clearly the starter in Chicago.
Gotcha. So, I just wanted to talk about one more thing before we sign off here. I know Chris, I've seen something that Chris has written about bye weeks. Do you guys draft according to bye weeks, or do you make sure that you don't have too many guys in 1 week? Or if you do you make sure you draft backups with good matchups in that bye week, or are you just, it's a bye week, it's 1 week, I'll be good every other week?
I ignore it 99%. The only thing I pay attention to is if I do get a second quarterback, I'd rather have him have a different bye week. That's about the only thing.
I ignored 100%. And if you're the type of guy that can choreograph your draft so that not only do you think you're really getting value, but you have your bye weeks segmented as such that it's like this perfect flow of you never have to drop anybody, you're a better man than I. But I am not. I do not pay attention to them whatsoever.
Not only do I pay attention to who has the good bye weeks, I pay attention to what my drafters are doing to try to structure it, just so I can throw them off by taking that one guy to be the perfect fit for their.
Right, and I try to ruin it for other people who are drafting by the bye weeks. I'll take a guy I don't even want just because he would have fit perfectly into your bye week strategy.
And I do that all in a minute, 10 seconds before my pick.
Yes, exactly. But don't you have a huge algorithm that shows who's on what bye week and whose team needs what bye weeks?
Oh yeah, I have this whole big thing about how Jay Cutler could be a great guy to have if you have a quarterback on bye in week 4 because he's got a great matchup against Detroit. So
okay. So if you have Aaron Rodgers, pick up Jay Cutler in week 2, then fine. You don't draft him. You don't waste a draft pick on that in a 1 quarterback league.
Yeah. So do you guys draft backup quarterbacks in let's say like a 10 or a 12 1 quarterback league? Do you even bother with a backup quarterback?
I would if I had a deep enough bench, meaning other quarterbacks won't be on the waiver wire. And, I did in the NFFC, same thing, 10 bench, and I got Michael Vick in like the 18th round or something crazy. I was like, I'll just take him because he's got more upside than the running backs and receivers that are left. Yeah, so I will occasionally do that, but not, if it's a Yahoo league where there's 5 bench spots, no, I won't take a backup quarterback.
I agreed with Chris. The only time I bench it, draft a bench quarterback is like super 8 to 10 deep bench, and I took like Alex Smith in like the 16th or 17th round in the NFC as my backup.
Gotcha. And so basically, is your bench mostly just filled with running backs and wide receivers, no other positions?
Maybe a tight end if I wait.
A tight end, yeah. I had Fleener and Gates, I think, in the NFFC, but yeah, it's mostly backs and receivers.
Gotcha. So, did you guys have anything you wanted to sign off on? Any final thoughts for everyone listening out there?
No, I think we've rambled on long enough. We should probably cut this one off.
We got to get Jeff. Yeah, let's let Jeff go to the beach. His life of leisure continues today.
It's exactly. Life with kids. So, hey, thanks for watching RotoWire TV with the RotoWire Hangout. He's Mike Gottlieb. He's Chris Liss. I'm Jeff Erickson. Thanks for watching.